Hello and welcome to this Vinyasa flow. We're first going to start in a child's pose, so your knees can be together or apart, toes are touching, and then allow your hips to settle on your heels and your arms placed in front of you. Start to take awareness of your breath, breathing in from the body, the back, and exhale out. I invite you to set an intention for this practice, and that might be just a simple word. What is it that you need in this moment of time? How do you want to handle this vinyasa flow? Go ahead, begin to press into your hands and make your way rounding the back into a tabletop position. And then an upward facing dog, so pressing the pelvis into the mat, straighten the arms and your gaze is up. Press into the hips to sit back into child's pose and continue rolling back and forth like a wave. Starting to warm up the joints in the spine, the hips, and the shoulders. Take about one more round, making sure you're in alignment with your breath. And coming out of child pose, we're going to thread the needle. So go ahead, press into the left hand, right hand raises up, and then palm faces up, sliding the right arm under the left armpit, come onto the right shoulder. And then continue this momentum reaching up towards the ceiling and then passing the right hand under the left armpit. Do this one more time. Then we're going to hold, bringing our breath to the shoulders. Both hands, arms, and shoulders are relaxed. You can deepen the stretch by raising your left hand out in front or wrapping it simply behind the back, reaching towards the outside of the right hip. Taking a moment of breath. Then release the left hand wherever it is, framing the face so that you can gently press back up into a tabletop position. We're going to come into our first cow and cat, so arching the back, and then rounding, pressing into all limbs, arching the back and tilting the pelvis back and forth. And we're going to come back into a neutral position and do thread the needle on the left side. So the left hand comes up, and slide it underneath the right armpit, coming onto the left shoulder and ear. Press back into the right hand, the left hand comes up, and exhale, release it back under the right shoulder. Do this one more time. Exhale. And then we're going to hold in this nice gentle twist, relaxing the shoulders. And see if you can square the hips. So you might have to draw your left hip back just a little bit. You can wrap your right hand around the back and just ask your body, what does it need to feel comfortable? On your next exhale, go ahead, release that right hand back towards the face and press into the right hand, coming back into the tabletop position. And go ahead, start that cat-cow again, arching the back, gazes up, and then rounding the back, creating a dome, rocking the pelvis back and forth. And then we're going to tuck the toes, bring the toes together, heels touch, send the hips on the heels. You can walk your way back, get into a nice deep toe stretch, see if you can pull out the pinkies. If that's too much for you, you can go ahead, place your hands in front of you and lean onto your hands. If not, you're going to inhale, lift the hands up, and twist on open towards the left. Right hand comes to the outside of the left hip. Gaze over your left shoulder, and gaze over your right. A little spinal movement. Inhale your hands back up. And exhale, open and up and twist towards the right. Left hand comes to the outside of the right hip. Gaze over the right shoulder. And then gaze over the left. Inhale, your hands are going to come up overhead. And when you place them back on the mat, your fingers are going to point towards your knees, untuck the toes, and then sit on your heels again. Press into the base of your palms to feel a nice deep stretch, opening up the wrists. Find your breath. And then we're going to come back into a tabletop position. Fingers are going to point away from each other, so palms are inwards, and then rock yourself side to side. Coming into a bird dog, extend the left hand and the right leg back. Bring it down towards the mat, and then lift up, and then crunch elbow towards knee. Extend the limbs out, touch the floor, and then crunch the elbow towards the knee. Really press into the right hand and the left knee, engaging the core. What I like to say is pretend you are on a paddleboard. Find the center of gravity within your body. Gonna do this a few more times. Focusing on your breath. Starting to feel heat within the core and noticing the body working as a whole. On your final one, go ahead, come back to a tabletop position. We'll do the same thing on the opposite side. So right hand comes up, left leg extends back. Find slight engagement of the glute and noticing that when you press into the opposite limbs, so the right knee and the left hand, it supports your stability just a little bit more. Touch the ground, lift back up and crunch. Inhale, extend, touch the ground, lift back up, and crunch. Notice what you feel on the opposite sides and how different it might be. And where can you find a little bit more balance within the body? You're doing great. Keep going. Last one. Extend out and come back into a neutral tabletop position. Warming out the glutes, we're going to extend the left leg out towards the side, drop it down to the ground, and then inhale, lift the leg back up. Exhale, bring it down, and do some foot touches, bringing the leg up and down, balancing on all other limbs, and slightly engaging the core. Do a few more. And then drop the left leg out and sit the hips onto the heel. Feeling a nice stretch on the inner left leg. You can keep the toes tucked or untucked on the right side. Gently press into your hands to come up, and we're going to come into a half circle so the left leg stays extended. Walk your hands to the outside of the right knee, and draw that left hand up and over like a rainbow towards the right side. Press into your left leg and come up into a T position. And then exhale, left hand slides down the left leg and the right hand rainbows up and over. Finding balance with your breath. And slide back on up into a T position and bring your hands out. Going to come into a cow face position. So the left leg is going to cross behind the right knee. Open the feet up nice and wide. And sit your hips in between the heels as far as possible, almost like a child's pose. You can slowly go in increments if your hips do not touch, just as long as you're feeling a good stretch in the hips. finding your breath. Gently press back into your hands, lifting your hips off, uncross the legs, and do any movements that feels good for you. I'm just going to rotate my position so you can see it. Go ahead, extend that right leg out. You can untuck the toes on the left side and do those leg raises, activating the glutes on the right side, making sure that you're really squeezing it and pressing as if you're pressing weight above with your ankle and your heel. Be mindful of your movement. And then start to send the hips back towards the heel, round in the back. And breathe into any area that feels juicy, finding your edge. Now, side note, I know I forgot to do half circle, but believe me, we will get back to that later on in this practice. Go ahead, press into your hands, and then we're going to cross the right leg behind the left, coming into cow face. So open up those heels, create space between your feet, and go ahead, start to send the hips back in between the space of your feet. Remember to go in slow increments. We're meeting our body's needs, not meeting our mind's needs. So release any expectations of the depth of the pose. Start to press into the hands and mindfully lift the hips off, coming back into a tabletop position. And working our way to our first downward facing dog, press into the heels, lift the hips up towards the sky, and you can pedal out your dog, walking your dog, bending one leg at a time. You can keep a micro bend within the knees, just really feeling the stretch within the hamstrings, the calves, and pressing evenly into both hands. And then roll through the spine forward into a high plank. Hold for a breath, gazes up, and chaturanga, bend into your elbows, pressing down to an upward facing dog. And lift the knees, send the hips back into a downward facing dog. The chaturanga. We're going to do this one more time, rolling forward mindfully to a high plank. Then lower your belly slowly down into an upward facing dog. Gazes up. And then press your hips back into a downward facing dog. Pedal out the dog one more time, and then lift that right leg up towards the ceiling. Bend that right knee and send it over towards the left side, square in the shoulders, pressing through the left heel. And then bring the right knee and draw it in towards the nose. And then exhale, send it back up to a three-legged dog. We're going to do this 2 more times. See if you can bring alignment with your breath. Exhale, send the right leg back and up. And be mindful of your movement, moving slow and feeling the flow. So we want to make sure that it's fluid and not choppy. On your next one, we're going to bring the right knee in between the hands, coming into a low lunge. So drop the left knee down, square the hips, press your head forward, and inhale your hands up overhead. If you want to take a little arch in the back, open up the chest. Then place your left hand on the inside of the right leg and twist your right hand up towards the ceiling. Frame the foot back and then lift the left knee off the mat and come into a high lunge. Really press through that right leg and the left heel. We're going to drop the left knee down towards the mat and just do some high lunge to low lunge. Keeping focus on your core, the center of your gravity. Find your breath. And remember to pretend you're on a paddleboard. This will help engagement of the core. Go ahead, keep that left knee down, frame your foot, and we're going to come into Janu Sirsasana. So sending the hips back as you straighten that right leg. Your left toes can be tucked or untucked. If you need a block for support, you can. And now we're just going to rock the hips forward and back, bending into a low lunge. And straightening that right leg again. See if you can find that fluid movement. And if it feels choppy, just make smaller ranges of movement until it feels fluid. We're building that neuromuscular connection. Go ahead, start to press your way forward back into that low lunge. Tuck the left toes and lift the left knee and bring it forward and meet me in a forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. And exhale, forward fold. Keep a micro bend within the knees if that feels good. And then inhale, rise on up into a mountain. Fingers interlace, pressing palms up and lean over towards the right. And then lean over towards the left. Inhale, back up towards center. And then interlace your hands behind your back, palms touch. Squeeze and roll the shoulder blades down and back. Press the fingers away and then fold your way forward, and the hands will naturally come off the back. Lift them up towards the ceiling or out in the opposite direction in front of you. Take a breath in and then slowly rise back on up. You can release the hands and come into a forward fold. Bend the knees. You can walk, hop, or jump your feet back into a high plank. And take that chaturanga like a push-up down towards the ground. Press the pelvis forward. Untuck the toes, upward facing dog. And then roll the hips back into a downward facing dog. Take a moment, allow the body to adjust. And then working our way to the opposite side, press into the right leg. And inhale that left leg up towards the sky. Opening up the hips, you can bend the left knee and send the hip towards the left. Square in the shoulders. And then exhale, begin to square the hips and bring the knee in between the hands, rounding the back, knee to nose. Creating engagement of the core. And exhale, send the left leg back. Continue doing this movement. Engage in the core, pretending you're on that paddleboard. Find stability. Finding your depth and your range. There's nothing to prove. Making sure we're breathing. Take one more round, extending that left leg all the way up, giving it your all. And then exhale, we're going to send that left knee in between the hands. Coming into that low lunge. So drop that right knee down, toes can be tucked or untucked. And then press your hands up towards the ceiling. Maybe take a nice arch. We're going to twist that right hand down towards the inside of the left leg. The left hand comes up towards the ceiling. Then place both hands around the left foot. Lift the right knee off the mat, coming into our high lunge. So whenever you feel ready and safe, secure, inhale, the hands come up. We're going to do those knee taps, so drop the right knee down towards the mat and squeezing the glutes to help lift you up. Notice the shifts in your hips, pressing through that left heel and the right, finding the center of gravity within the body. Find your breath. You got this. And then inhale, keep that high lunge up. And step your right leg to meet the left. Inhale, the hands come up overhead. And exhale, forward fold. Really press through the heels, send the hips back. Inhale, halfway lift, flat back. And exhale, start to bend the knees, coming into a chair pose. So as if you're sitting on a chair, hips lean back, hands come up overhead if that feels comfortable for you. If not, place them by your sides and reaching behind you. Bring your hands to prayer pose in front of your hearts and twist the left elbow towards the outside of the right knee, back towards center, and then twist the right elbow towards the left knee. And inhale back towards center and exhale forward fold. Slowly roll the spine up to stack the shoulders over the hips. Hands come up overhead. And exhale. Bring your hands back down towards the mat. You can step, hop, or walk into a high plank. And then take that nice chaturanga, pushing your chest down. Hips come to meet the mat. And press yourself up to an upward facing dog. And exhale, send the hips back into a child's pose. Hips come down onto your heels. Knees can be together or apart. And your hands can rest out in front of you or behind. Begin to come into a tabletop position, and in a variation of lizard, the right leg is going to come on the outside of the right arm. And then twist your hips over towards the right, and then shift your hips over towards the left. Feel a nice stretch in the hip flexors and obliques. And one more time, send the hips over towards the right. Right arm presses against the right leg, and the left hand comes up. And then back to the ground. Extend that right leg back, and the same thing on the left. So the left leg comes on the outside of the left arm. Lean into the hips. And then send the hips over towards the left, opening up the hips. Left hand presses into the left leg, and right arm comes up. Right arm comes back down, and shift the hips over towards the right. And neutralize the hips. And then we're going to finish what we completed on the other side. So send the hips back, straightening that left leg, forehead to knee, Janu Sirsasana. Like I promised, we're going to do the opposite side that we missed earlier. Breathe into the juiciness of the tension that you feel in the hips, the hamstring. Then we're going to rock the knee and the hips forward. Come into the low lunge. And then backwards, straighten in that left leg. Toes can come up for a deeper stretch in the calf. But again, meeting your body's needs and what feels good for you. Moving super slow and intentional and pace with your breath. I'm going to do this about one more time, so go ahead, come back into that low lunge. And being mindful as you draw the hips back, straightening that leg. Go ahead, come back into a tabletop position. Extending that left leg back. And sending your hips down onto your heels. Coming into a child's pose. Arms can be out in front of you or by your side. Anything that's soothing. And then roll your way over to come onto your hips. Your legs are going to come extending out in front of you. Knees can have a micro bend, but we're going to inhale, lift the hands up over, draw the navel in, and hinge from the hips as you reach forward. When you feel a good stretch, that's when you can grab your legs, your shins, your ankles, your toes, and then round the upper body, relaxing the neck. Feel a nice stretch in the lower back, the hamstring, and then inhale, relax the arms, and roll the shoulders over the hips. You're going to cross the left leg over the right. Wrap the right arm around the left knee. The left hand comes behind you for a nice deep twist. Getting deep into the piriformis. Inhale. And release out. Slowly you can relax the right arm facing forward. And then you can drop that left knee out towards the side, but keep the ankle crossed over the thigh. If that feels comfortable for you, inhale your hands up. And then exhale, lean yourself forward to reach for that right leg. Find the distance that feels good for you. And maybe you don't even lean forward, but just keeping your torso up straight is a deep enough stretch. And that's okay. Find your breath. And then slowly start to walk your hands back up. And do the cross of the legs. Shake them out if that feels good for you. And cross your right leg over the left, bending the right knee. Left hand wraps around the right knee. And the right hand comes behind you, opening up the chest towards the right. See if you can keep a balance between both glutes. Finding your breath. And then rotate your torso forward, cross the right ankle over the left thigh for a seated pigeon pose. Arms come up, navel draws in, and then hinge through the hips forward. I probably didn't do the best posture here or listen to my body, so I encourage you to listen to yours and knowing that it's okay wherever we're at. As long as you're feeling the stretch on the outside of that right leg, you might even feel a stretch on the left hamstring. Begin to roll your way up, releasing that right leg out in front of you. And coming onto our backs, take a moment, bring your knees in towards their chest. Rock from side to side if that feels good to massage the lower back. Then begin to unravel your body, straightening the legs out in front of you. Arms come by your side to our final resting pose, Shavasana. See if you can relax the shoulders, tucking them down and under. Pretend like someone is pressing your shoulders into the mat. Pressing your hips into the mat. And all limbs are relaxed. The eyes are closed. The jaw is relaxed. And allowing the deep integration process, the space to be settled in the body. And may you bring awareness to the power of stillness. Start to bring some life into the body by taking a deep breath. And wiggle the fingers, the toes, taking a nice deep stretch. Hands come up overhead. And then slowly drawing your knees over towards one side, rolling into a fetal position. And slowly, mindfully making your way up, coming into a cross-legged seated position. Take a moment just to observe the change in your body, your state, and come back to your intention. Take one last deep breath in and exhale out. Hands come to prayer pose in front of your heart, honoring your journey and your presence. May you stand in your light and cherish it. Malama Pono. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. See you soon.